Exposed. How my parents sold our dream home for my brother's luxury trip, an incredible ACT of love. Emma's heart raced as she parked her bike in the driveway, the faint smell of barbecued burgers wafting through the neighborhood. But today, that scent tasted bitter. The moving trucks in front of their house loomed large, casting ominous shadows across the well-manicured lawn. "What is happening?" she whispered, feeling her stomach drop as she rushed inside. Her parents stood in the living room, eyes glistening with unshed tears. "We sold the house, Emma," her mom said softly, the words slicing through the air like a knife. "We did it for Mark." Her father nodded, the lines on his forehead deepening, signaling both pride and pain. Mark, her older brother, a veteran worn by battles none could see, was supposed to go on a healing trip abroad, a chance to escape, to find peace. But in that moment, Emma felt a storm brewing inside her. "You sold our home, for him?" she stammered, anger igniting within her. Years of hard work, their laughter, family dinners, everything was packed away, traded for what felt like a fleeting indulgence. "I was going to go to college, you know? My plans," her voice faltered, the injustice burning hot in her chest. The dreams her parents had always encouraged her to chase suddenly felt like ashes in her mouth. At the next community event, Emma's fury bubbled over. She found herself standing in front of neighbors, her pulse pounding in her ears. "My brother's trip. It's like he's more important than my future." The crowd fell silent, all eyes on her. She could see the mix of looks, surprise, empathy, the unfinished conversations hanging like smoke in the air. She spoke, emotions wrapped around her words. "I feel abandoned," she cried, tears spilling over her cheeks. Each syllable struck like a drumbeat, resonating with friends and neighbors. They leaned in, sharing murmurs and nods, their own struggles flickering in their expressions. The tension swelled, igniting old discussions about sacrifice and family loyalty, weaving a tapestry of communal pain and memory. Later, facing her parents, Emma's voice quivered with barely contained rage. "How could you do this to me?" Over him. Their explanations offered no solace, just empty justifications that spun like a web of doubt in her mind. "We're scared for Mark," they pleaded, their worry evident. But her pain clawed louder. "And what about me?" she shouted, her words echoing in the silence. Mark stood nearby, the weight of his guilt too heavy to bear. "Emma, I'm not worth this," he finally admitted, the shame evident in his eyes. Her breath caught in her throat. They were all trapped in an invisible prison of expectation, suffering. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." Tensions reached a breaking point as unspoken truths filled the room. Emma's heart raced at the possibility of losing not just her home, but the fragile connections they all shared. Just as the silence threatened to consume them, the doorbell rang. It was a stranger with a familiar face, someone carrying news that could turn their world upside down. Emma felt the air shift, her pulse picking up. She could sense the impending change, the thread of hope threading through the chaos. Would they find a way back to each other, or would the rift only widen? The door creaked open, and a man stepped inside, his expression serious, yet somehow softened by a hint of familiarity. Emma squinted, trying to place him. He looked as if he belonged in her life, yet she couldn't quite remember where he was from. The moving boxes momentarily faded from her mind as this unexpected visitor shifted her reality. "Mr. Thompson," her father said, surprise breaking through the tension. "What are you doing here?" Emma's heart dropped at the urgency in her father's voice. "I came to talk with you about Mark," Mr. Thompson said, glancing meaningfully at the rest of the family. "It's urgent." Mark shifted uneasily, clearly unsettled by the man's arrival. Emma felt her anger flicker, making room for curiosity. "What about him?" she asked, her tone sharp. "Is he in trouble again?" "No." Mr. Thompson lowered his gaze, then met hers. "But he needs to know there's a chance for help. A program of veteran retreat that could aid in his recovery. They provide scholarships." Emma's breath hitched. A lifeline for Mark? Just as the idea sparked hope, resentment flared. So you're saying there's a way to get him help without losing everything we have? Her voice cracked, and she fought against the wave of emotion threatening to consume her. Her mother stepped forward, eyes wide. But the trip abroad was supposed to be the solution. We thought that was what he needed to heal. Sometimes, Mr. Thompson replied, his voice steady. The most meaningful healing comes from those who truly understand what he's going through. This program is rooted in that understanding. Mark, for the first time since the incident started, looked to Emma, his expression one of desperation mingled with relief. Emma, I don't want you to feel like this is because of me, he said quietly, his voice trembling. I never asked for any of this. The weight of that moment hung in the air. Emma bit her lip. To her, change had always felt ambivalent, thrilling yet terrifying. She thought about her brother, the one who always protected her, now torn apart by demons both real and imagined. So if we don't have to lose our home to help you, then why? She struggled to keep her emotions in check. Because I thought it was the only option, her father confessed, his voice heavy with shame. I thought giving Mark this trip was a way out for all of us. I didn't want to burden you. A heaviness settled over Emma's heart. She realized her parents had sacrificed with good intentions, thinking that love could heal wounds. But they had misread the signs. Their home wasn't just walls and a roof. It was laughter, tears, support, everything Emma had been fighting for. You don't need to sacrifice for him, she said, each word tumbling out with clarity. We can support him together. Mr. Thompson saw the shift, and a glimmer of hope crossed his face. There is still time to apply for the program, he said, turning to Mark. You need to make a choice, but know that there are people who care, ready to help. But even as the doors opened to new possibilities, Emma felt uncertainty lurking. What if they applied, only to be rejected? What if they found help but lost each other amid the chaos? She glanced at her family, their expressions shifting from despair to budding hope, and in that instant, she feared the fragility of it all. The tension of unanswered questions crackled in the air. Emma needed to know how far her family was willing to go for healing. They were at a crossroads, and the road ahead was fraught with danger. In the face of that uncertainty, would they come together or drift further apart? Mark, what do you want to do? Emma asked, her heart racing as she considered their next step. As Mark opened his mouth to respond, the world stood still, anticipation hanging in the air like the first explosive chords of a song. Would his answer change everything, or would it leave them standing on the brink of loss and despair? Mark hesitated, his eyes darting between Emma and Mr. Thompson. The weight of his family's expectations settled heavily on him. Every heartbeat felt like an eternity, pressing down on his chest. He wanted to scream that he didn't want to be the source of this conflict, this pressure. But he was also tired of feeling broken and lost. I don't know, he finally admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. I feel trapped, like I'm the anchor pulling everyone down. Emma's heart ached for him. Here they were, tangled in this web of worry and despair. She stepped closer, determined to break through the crushing silence. Mark, you're not a burden. You're my brother. We're a family, and we'll figure this out together, she said, her voice steadier than she felt. But deep down, Emma struggled with her own conflicting emotions. What if this helped Mark? What if he could reclaim the laughter and joy that once filled their home? And yet, the fear of the unknown loomed large, gnawing at her sanity. Mr. Thompson nodded, a flicker of understanding in his gaze. Feeling trapped can often become just as debilitating as the struggle itself. Mark, healing isn't a straight path. It's messy and unpredictable. You have to be willing to take that first step, he said, his voice both firm and compassionate. I don't want to leave you, Mark confessed, his eyes glittering with unshed tears. I don't want to leave you all behind. Emma felt tears prick her own eyes. You wouldn't be leaving us. You'd be taking a leap for yourself. For your future. She swallowed hard, her throat tight. We'd be right here, cheering you on. Mark's gaze shifted to his parents, who stood nearby. A mix of hope and hesitation etched across their faces. Emma could see their hearts yearning to support him, but also wrestling with fear. She stepped back to give him space to breathe and think. Mark, their father spoke up, the emotion in his voice unmistakable. Whatever choice you make, we stand behind you. This isn't just about the potential loss of our home. It's about all of us finding a way to move forward, together. He paused as if the weight of his words hung in the air, and then he added softly, no matter what, we're a family. Emma felt a surge of love. Her parents had been lost in their own fear, yet here they were, ready to change course. But would it be enough? Mark looked between them, uncertainty still flickering in his eyes. What if I can't do it? What if it doesn't work? This was the moment they all dreaded, the shadow of doubt creeping in. Emma dared to hope that by stepping into this unknown together, they could reshape their reality. But doubt was a lingering shadow in the corners. Then we figure it out, as a family, Emma replied, her voice firm. You're not alone, Mark. You've got us. As the silence settled again, Emma felt the raw emotions of her family surrounding them, coiling around like a protective barrier. The air was thick with possibilities, yet so fragile, as if even the slightest sound could shatter it. What do you want, really? Mark's question cut through the tension, directed not just at himself, but at them all. They were faced with the most daunting decision so far. Emma knew this wouldn't be the end of their fight. This was only the beginning. The road ahead looked uncertain, but they had a chance to explore something new and real. As Mark opened his mouth again, ready to share his truth, a loud crash echoed from the kitchen, followed by a sharp cry. Their moment fractured in an instant, leaving them all stunned. Emma's heart sank as a wave of dread crashed over her. What next awaited them now in this whirlwind of turmoil? Emma's heart raced as she darted towards the kitchen, adrenaline propelling her forward. The cry had come from their mother, and the image of her sprawled on the floor flooded Emma with panic. She burst into the room, her breath catching as she took in the mess before her. The chair lay toppled next to a shattered vase. Water and flowers spread across the floor like a broken promise. Their mother kneeled among the debris, her hands trembling as she tried to gather the shards. The sight of her, usually so composed, reduced to a shadow of herself cut like a knife through Emma's heart. Mom. Emma rushed to her side, her mind racing. What happened? Their mother looked up, eyes glistening with hurt. I reached for a plate I dropped, and my elbow caught the vase. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. It's okay. Emma said, her voice earnest yet trembling. It's just a vase. But the words felt hollow. It wasn't just about the vase. It was about everything this moment represented: the cracks forming in their family, the pain that resurfaced every time they faced their situation. Mark appeared behind Emma, his expression a mixture of worry and guilt. Mom, I should have been in there. I should have been helping. I'll clean this up. No, Mark, their mother said gently, but her voice quivered. This isn't your fault. It's just everything has been so overwhelming lately. She trailed off, her shoulders sagging under an invisible weight. Emma could see her parents struggling, caught in a maelstrom of emotions. She felt that familiar tightness in her throat, the pain of wanting to fix everything, but feeling utterly powerless. Let us take a moment, she suggested quietly. Let us breathe. As they sat on the kitchen floor, amidst the remnants of their shattered vase, the atmosphere shifted. Mark took a breath, holding on to the moment of quiet before speaking again. I know I'm the reason for all this chaos. It's like I'm this black hole, sucking all the light from our lives. No, you're not, Emma insisted, her heart breaking for him again. You're not a black hole. You're our brother, and we love you. Was it enough? It had to be enough. Their father stepped in, kneeling down to pick up a piece of the vase. We're all hurting, Mark. We need to support each other, not blame ourselves. He sounded stronger, more resolved, but the worry etched on his face told Emma that it was hard for him, too. But how? Mark asked, frustration tinging his voice. How do we just move on and pretend like everything is okay? Emma thought for a moment. We don't pretend. We acknowledge it. All of it: the fear, the love, the hurt. We face it together, like we promised. Silence settled as each of them absorbed her words. The wreckage of the moment seemed to validate their chaos. In this fragility, Emma felt a flicker of hope. They could craft something beautiful from the brokenness. Mark nodded slowly, understanding blooming in his eyes. Then maybe I'll try. I'll try to figure this out if you all promise to be there every step of the way. We promise, Emma and their parents echoed, voices harmonizing in sincerity. Just then, the distant sound of sirens reached their ears, a stark reminder of the world outside. Emma's heart dropped, a sense of foreboding washing over her. in the midst of their fragile moment. What if this disruption led to something far worse? Mom, what if she started? But their mother was already shaking her head, a hint of resolve returning to her face. Let us finish cleaning this up together, then we'll talk about whatever comes next. One step at a time. As they began to gather the pieces, brokenness felt less like an ending and more like a challenging beginning. But deep down, Emma sensed the storm wasn't truly over. The unease, the question lingering like a shadow what awaited them next. She stole a glance at Mark, determination flickering in his eyes, and wondered if they truly prepared themselves for the struggles to come. The kitchen felt heavy with unspoken words. Emma picked up a shard of the vase, its edges sharp and jagged. Her hands trembled slightly as she imagined the life that once bloomed in it. She could feel the weight of anxiety hanging in the air, a silent echo of their struggles. Maybe I should call Dad home, Mark suggested suddenly, his voice low. He should be here with us. It feels wrong trying to handle this alone. Dad's at work, Mark. He's trying to support us. Even if it seems like he's missed all the drama, Emma replied, her eyes meeting his. There was a fire in her brother's gaze, a determination that made her heart swell. We've got each other right now. Mark frowned and picked up a flower that had managed to stay whole. Its petals were vibrant against the gray tiles. This flower is just like us, he said, frowning. In all this mess, it's still standing. Tougher than it looks. Emma smiled, a tiny flicker of warmth in their shared pain. If only they could be like that flower. They worked in silence for a while, every now and then stealing glances at each other. The sound of sirens outside grew louder, a reminder that life continued even in turmoil. Emma's heart raced at the thought, wondering if the sirens were a sign of something worse waiting just beyond their doorstep. Once they had cleared most of the debris, their mother returned to the kitchen with an armful of fresh towels. Her face was still pale, and Emma noticed how she avoided eye contact, keeping her gaze focused on her task. Let me help, Emma offered, stepping forward to assist her. Their mother held up a towel, her fingers trembling slightly. It's okay, sweetie. I can do this. Just give me a moment. Emma nodded, even as she felt a surge of frustration. Her mother often insisted on bearing the burden alone, but this time felt different. Mom, you don't always have to be strong, Emma murmured, her voice a thread of hope. We're here. We can share the weight. I know, her mother whispered, her voice breaking at the edges. I just don't want my struggles to add to yours. But they were struggling together. Their family was built on fighting through things as a unit. Mark approached their mother and gently squeezed her shoulder. We want to help you, Mom. You're not alone in this. A silence enveloped them again, the air thick with unspoken pain, but also the beginnings of understanding. Just then, a loud knock startled them all. Emma's heart leaped into her throat. Who could that be? Mark exchanged a glance with Emma, a mix of curiosity and anxiety. Their mother turned toward the door slowly, a frown deeply etched into her features. Go see who it is, Emma urged, her eyes darting towards the entrance. It could be important. With hesitation pooling in his stomach, Mark stepped toward the door, the summer light glaring through the frosted glass. What if it's something bad? Then we deal with it together, Emma replied, her voice steady as she felt for his confidence. He opened the door slowly, and the sound of a voice reached them, muffled yet urgent. There was an edge to it, a tension that sent an icy shiver down Emma's spine. Is this the Miller residence? The voice called out, firm and clear. We need to speak to you regarding your son. Her heart pounded. Emma took a step forward, feeling that familiar knot of dread in her gut. She sensed that whatever news was coming could change everything again. Mark turned back, his expression stricken. Yeah, that's us, he replied. Emma's stomach twisted, her heart thundering. What awaited them on the other side? A reunion of hope or a division of despair? And what about Mark's struggle to find his way? Hold on, please, she called out, each word heavier than the last as she felt them move closer to the edge of a new cliff. What would happen when the door opened fully? Emma felt a chill wrap around her spine as uncertainty hung heavy in the air. The door creaked open, and a tall figure emerged, backlit by the sun. The silhouette belonged to an officer, his uniform crisp and neat, his expression stern yet sympathetic. Emma's breath caught in her throat. Are you Mark Miller? The officer inquired, his voice steady but laced with a tense urgency. Mark swallowed hard, confusion flickering across his face. Yeah, that's me. May I come inside? The officer asked, glancing briefly over his shoulder, as if ensuring they were alone. Emma's heart raced. There was an odd weight to the officer's demeanor, one that conveyed more than the polite request of a stranger. What is going on? She blurted out, stepping closer to Mark, instinctively shielding him. The officer nodded slowly, his gaze sweeping over the remnants of the broken vase and the disarray. I need to discuss something serious regarding your brother. Serious? Emma echoed, the word tasting bitter on her tongue. She felt as though the walls were closing in around them. What do you mean? Your brother. He is involved in a situation we must sort out today. The officer hesitated, clearly weighing his words. We received a report about an incident at the park. A fight broke out, and it appears that your brother may be connected to it. The words hung in the air, sharp and jagged. Emma instinctively took a step back, her mind racing. Mark is not involved in anything like that. Yes, I need you both to calm down. The officer interjected gently, but firmly. Right now, we need to talk about what happened. It's important to ensure that we get the full picture. Emma felt her mother's presence shift behind her, the quiet strength she always relied on suddenly faltering. What kind of picture? She asked, her voice trembling slightly. Just give me a moment, please. The officer took a breath. There were accusations of Mark attacking another boy. We want to hear from him before things escalate further. Mark's face blanched, and his fists clenched. That is not true. I didn't do anything. Emma began, but her voice cracked, the words catching in her throat. A small silence fell, and in that moment, the world outside faded. All that filled Emma's mind was an overwhelming urge to protect her brother, to stand up against this looming threat flooding their fragile family cocoon. The officer shifted, his posture softening just a little. I understand this is a lot, but you need to trust the process. It's important for your own safety. Emma glanced at Mark, searching for the right response, the right approach to diffuse what felt like an impending doom. You can't just believe some accusation without hearing from him first. We will talk to you. But what are we actually talking about? Mark asked, eyes wide and earnest. He was struggling not to wilt under the weight of everything. I wouldn't hurt anyone. I swear. I know you wouldn't, Mark, Emma encouraged, taking his hand. Just tell them what happened. We can get through this. It'll all be okay. Their mother stepped forward, desperate but steady. What if we come down to the station? We can all discuss this properly. Let us not complicate things, the officer insisted, raising a hand. For now, we need your cooperation. Please, bring him with me. I promise we're only trying to help. Emma felt the air thicken with tension as she exchanged heavy glances with Mark and their mother. They were stepping into uncharted territory, shadows creeping into their already fragile reality. Do it for your brother, their mother whispered, a plea pressed forth from her heart. Mark nodded slowly, clearly frightened yet determined. Okay, I'll go. As he stepped toward the door, Emma's heart raced. Was this the beginning of something they could not return from? What exactly had he been entangled in, and where would this lead them next? Mark, she said, her voice breaking. Just promise me you'll come back. We need you. Always, he replied, a flicker of strength shining through his fear. But as he walked out that door, Emma felt a weight settle over her, a heavy doubt clinging to her soul. What awaited them down the road? And was their fragile family bond strong enough to handle what lay ahead? The officer walked alongside Mark, the bright sun casting long shadows on the pavement. Each step felt deliberate, pulling Mark deeper into uncertainty. He glanced back at Emma, her face a storm of worry, but he forced a nod. She had always been his shield, so he needed to stay strong for her now. As they reached the patrol car, Mark felt a chill wash over him. The parking lot was empty, save for a few scattered leaves dancing along the asphalt. Nothing felt right. Why was this happening? The officer opened the back door, motioning for Mark to get in. The vastness of the back seat felt overwhelming, as if it was swallowing him whole. Can you tell me what happened? The officer asked, his tone shifting from stern to gentle. Just start from the beginning. I promise I'm here to listen. Mark took a deep breath. I was at the park waiting for my friends. We were supposed to play basketball, but then I saw this guy. His voice wavered. He was with a couple of his buddies. They were joking around, and I didn't think much of it at first. The officer nodded knowingly. Go on. I don't know what got into them, Mark continued, his heart racing as the memory poured out. They saw me, and one of them yelled something. I didn't respond. I just kept walking. But then they followed me. They started pushing me. Were you hit? The officer's eyes narrowed, searching for any detail. I didn't fight back. I swear, Mark insisted, feelings of desperation clawing at him. I just wanted them to leave me alone. But then one of them got in my face, telling me I was weak. I pushed him away to get them to stop. Is that when it escalated? The officer's pen scratched against the notepad, notes forming a narrative that could shift Mark's life forever. Yeah, I guess he fell back, and then he claimed I hit him. But I didn't. I was just trying to get them off me. Anger bubbled beneath his voice now, tiny sparks of frustration and fear igniting. Mark, it's important to keep your emotions in check, the officer interjected firmly but kindly. Accusations can spiral quickly. Mark felt the weight of that statement settle heavily on his shoulders as he stared blankly out the window. Somewhere in his gut, he felt the fear grow. What if nobody believed him? What if he was labeled as the trouble kid? All because of someone else's foolishness. Why are they saying this? He asked finally, voice barely above a whisper. I've never hurt anyone. Why would they target me? Sometimes, people look for an easy target, especially in groups, the officer explained. That's why it's vital that we get your side straight. If there are witnesses, they could help clear this up. Mark felt a slight flicker of hope. I had a friend, Jordan, he was there too. He can back me up. Good. That's a start. Before Mark could even process it, the officer's radio squawked to life, momentarily drowning out his thoughts. He listened, an escalating urgency sparking unease within him. As the officer responded, Mark's stomach flipped. What if this went further than a misunderstanding? How would Emma and his mother cope with everything? The screaming doubt loomed larger, but he noticed the officer watching him. You'll be fine, I promise. We'll contact your friend and sort this out. Will they believe me? Mark's voice cracked. The officer placed a hand on Mark's shoulder. Let us focus on the next steps. It's not over yet. Mark nodded, uncertainty still clawing at him. If this was just the beginning, how much worse could it get? Suddenly, a new noise broke through the air, tires screeching and sirens blaring. Mark's heart sank. Was it the sound of more trouble? What is happening? He asked, panic seeping into his tone. Stay calm, Mark. We just need to wait. I'll keep you safe. But as Mark stared out, dread settled in the pit of his stomach. What whirlwind had he been pulled into, and would he ever find a way out? Just then, a figure emerged in the distance, someone familiar, someone who could either be a lifeline or an anchor pulling him under. Was it his friend? Marky thought he heard Emma's voice. Calling, echoes of concern dancing along the wind. What was waiting for him on the other side of the door? Mark's pulse quickened when he spotted Emma's silhouette cutting through the chaos. She looked small but fiercely determined as she approached, her eyes darting around the scene like a hawk. He could see her lips moving, frantic whispers directed at the officer before she turned to him, her expression pleading for reassurance. Mark, are you okay? She called, her voice loud enough to reach him through the clamor of engines and murmurs. I'm fine, he managed to say, though he wasn't sure he believed it. Panic fluttered in his chest, caught between a need to comfort her and an overwhelming urge to protect his own fraying nerves. The officer shifted, allowing Emma to step closer. I'm just talking to him about what happened. We're sorting it out, he reassured her, his tone steady and calm. Sorting it out? Emma's eyes bored into Mark's, searching for truth. What has to sort? They're making stuff up, right? Please tell me they're making it up. Mark shook his head, trying to suppress the boiling turmoil inside him. I don't know. I just pushed him away. I didn't mean to hurt anyone. Emma reached for his hand, squeezing it so tightly it almost hurt. But you're not a bad person, Mark. You didn't do anything wrong. Determination shone in her gaze like a beacon in the fog of doubt around him. Listen, the officer spoke, his voice firm but low, as if trying not to pierce Mark's fragile shell any further. We'll need to gather all accounts of what happened. I'll speak with your friend Jordan, too. Mark barely caught the officer's words, his mind racing through worst-case scenarios. What would happen if nobody believed him? If the trust everyone had placed in him simply unraveled? Do you think he saw everything? Mark asked, trying to maintain the last threads of hope. He better have, Emma said, her eyes narrowing in fierce resolve. No way you're getting in trouble for something you didn't do. Suddenly, a second patrol car pulled into the lot, lights flashing. Mark's stomach twisted. More officers meant more scrutiny, more questions, and possibly more fear. They came over, followed by two officers that appeared far too serious. They seemed to envelop the space around them, their presence amplifying the weight pressing down on Mark's shoulders. The officer leaned into the back seat and glanced at Mark. "You're Mark, right?" he asked, but there was no comfort in his tone. "Yes," Mark acknowledged, a knot forming in his throat. "We need to ask some follow-up questions and get a clearer understanding of what happened. It won't take long." Just like that, he felt like a pawn in a game he didn't even want to play. As the officers began their questioning, Mark noticed Emma stepping back, her lips pressed together in a thin line. She looked uneasy, almost like she was about to crumble. He hated seeing her like this. She was supposed to be his shield, not the one breaking. "Mark," one of the officers stated, interrupting his thoughts. "We need complete honesty from you." The way the words hung in the air made his heart race. What would happen if he faltered? He had to hold on to their unwavering belief in him. He wanted more than anything to dispel the weight of doubt edging its way into their lives. "Right," he answered, swallowing hard as a glimmer of courage pushed back against the fear coiling around him. But just then, a voice broke through the tension. "Mark, is that really you?" It was Jordan, bounding toward them with an urgency that made several heads turn. Relief washed over him, a stark contrast to the anxious energy in the air. "Jordan," he called, feeling a surge of warmth at the sight of his friend. "I heard you got in trouble," Jordan said, stopping short as he noticed the officers. "What is going on?" Mark's heart beat faster, knowing Jordan could be the bridge between truth and the accusations weighing heavily on him. "Just tell them what you saw." Mark's plea was raw, a desperate hope that shattered the layers of dread coiling around them all. Jordan stepped forward, determination visible in his posture. "I'm not going to let you down, man." As eyes turned toward Jordan, Mark grasped onto that moment, the last piece of hope hanging in the balance. Would this be the turning point? Would it finally break through the fog of confusion? In that moment, uncertainty lingered like a specter, and Mark knew he was standing on the edge of something extremely important. Would the truth finally come to light, or was it merely the beginning of a far uglier reality? Jordan stepped forward, drawing all eyes toward him. The officers paused, their pens poised above their notepads. There was something in the air, the weight of expectation, and Mark's heart thudded in his chest. "Okay, listen," Jordan began, steadying his voice. "I was right there when everything went down. Mark didn't do anything wrong. He was just trying to help." Mark felt a rush of gratitude swell inside him. But before he could relish it, one of the officers interjected. "We need to hear exactly what you saw, son." The officer's demeanor was businesslike, but Mark noted a flicker of acknowledgement in his eyes. Jordan swallowed hard and looked at Mark, as if anchoring his words. "I saw Mark push someone, but it wasn't aggressive. He was trying to protect." His voice faltered, and Mark felt a surge of protectiveness for his friend. He was just trying to keep the situation from getting worse. "What situation?" another officer asked, urgency threading through his tone. Jordan's brow furrowed as he pieced it all together. There was a guy who was getting aggressive, yelling at someone. Mark stepped between them, and that's when it got out of hand. Every word felt like a heavy stone, sinking into the depths of uncertainty. Mark held his breath, hoping Jordan's account would warm the freon air of doubt swirling around them. The second officer's eyes flicked toward his partner, exchanging a brief glance that set Mark's heart racing. And what happened next? Did Mark respond after being provoked? Mark's stomach twisted at the question. Provoked? That word hung in the air, dangerous and volatile. This wasn't just about right or wrong anymore. It was about perception. "No," Jordan insisted. "It was a split-second thing. Everyone was on edge, and he just reacted." Mark's pulse thrummed in his ears. Jordan's conviction was a lifeline, but would it be enough? Another officer took a step closer, looking at Mark with scrutiny. "What about the other person involved? Is he okay?" Mark felt the heat crawl up his face. "I didn't mean to," he sighed, pushing a hand through his hair, frustration boiling. "I didn't want to hurt anybody." Emma stepped forward, a protective light in her eyes. "We all saw the way that guy was acting. He was out of control." "Ma'am," the first officer said sharply, but Emma ignored him, raising her chin defiantly. "Mark's your friend, and he deserves better than this. Someone needs to take responsibility for what they did to him." The officer stiffened at her words, the air around them charged. Fervent energy crackled like electricity, and the people nearby began to murmur, their gaze shifting between the officers and this small but fierce group centered around Mark. Just then, a voice from the crowd broke through the tension. I saw what happened too. The guy was out of line. It was a passerby, stepping from the periphery and into the fray. Mark felt a rush of hope and fear mix in his chest. A small crowd gathered, their faces a spectrum of concern and curiosity. Would they believe him? Do you think we can trust you for an account? One of the officers said, visibly stiffening as the crowd grew. Yes, the passerby replied, confidence in his voice. I was there. I can tell you everything. Mark's breath caught. The truth was no longer just a fragile thread. It began to feel like a rope that could pull him up from the depths of despair. However, as he watched the passerby step closer, a chilling thought crossed his mind. What if this was just the beginning? What if the truth was twisted and it all turned against him? He glanced at Emma and Jordan, their faces filled with cautious hope. But would they be there for him when this was all over? In that moment, Mark realized how deeply intertwined their lives had become, and his heart raced. What if this testimony changed everything? And yet, part of him braced for a storm. Would this be a redemption story? Or was it only unearthing a deeper struggle? Emma's heart raced in the hospital waiting room, the fluorescent lights buzzing as uncertainty hung thick in the air. The hours stretched, each tick of the clock resonating like a slow drumbeat, filling her with dread. Mark's fate hung in the balance, and it felt like the very essence of their family was teetering on a knife's edge. Do you think he'll be okay? She whispered to her parents, her voice barely above a breath, her eyes glued to the door where doctors and nurses drifted by. Her mother clutched Emma's hand tightly, brimming with tension and anxiety. He will be. He has to be, she replied, her voice trembling. Underneath her brave face, Emma sensed the storm of emotions swirling within. The vulnerability in her mother's eyes reflected a raw truth. None of them knew what the future would look like. And then, finally, the door creaked open. The doctor emerged, his expression serious yet not devoid of hope. Emma's heart leapt as she stood, a desperate plea bubbling up within her chest. How is he? She managed, meeting the doctor's gaze. He's stable, the doctor said, and relief washed over her like a cool breeze. But he's shaken. We want to keep him for observation, just to make sure everything is weighed out. There it was, hope mixed with uncertainty, casting shadows that still loomed heavy over past choices. Can we see him? Her father asked, his voice deep, a mixture of determination and fear. We need to be there for him. The doctor nodded, guiding them down the hallway, and with each step, Emma's heart surged with a mixture of anxiety and comfort. They were moving toward what felt like the other side, a glimmer of unity breaking through the chaos. Entering the small room, Emma's breath caught. Mark lay there, pale but alive, the familiar sound of beeping machines interspersing the silence. Relief flooded her, but as she stepped closer, she noticed the weight of sadness etched into his features. Hey, Mark, she said softly, her voice trembling with emotion. His eyes blinked open, struggling to focus, and a faint smile broke through his pain. Emma, what happened? He murmured, his voice hoarse. I didn't mean for any of this. The raw regret clung heavy to his words. Emma stepped closer, pulling a chair beside his bed. It wasn't your fault, Mark. You were protecting yourself. We believe in you. Behind her, she felt her parents draw nearer, their hearts joining in the unspoken promise of support. Mark's eyes glistened with unshed tears. I let you all down. I put you through this. The revelation struck Emma hard. It was heavy, but she could see something shift within him, as if a tiny seed of hope was beginning to sprout despite the despair. You didn't let us down, she said firmly, emotion binding her resolve. We went through this together. That's what family means. We're here for you now. Her voice cracked, but she pressed on, fighting the tears threatening to spill over. We'll go through every step of this process as a family. We'll help you heal not just physically, but emotionally. We're not going to let this tear us apart. Mark looked between Emma and their parents, deeper understanding dawning in his eyes. You're all still with me? The vulnerable question broke through the silence, leading to a soft chorus of affirmations. Always, yes. Mark, we'll get through this together. For the first time in what felt like ages, a hint of a smile tugged at the corners of Marcus' lips. I'm scared, though he admitted, his voice small. Me too, Emma replied honestly, her heart racing faster than it had in days. But we'll learn how to manage that fear together. It's okay to feel overwhelmed. Their mother stepped closer, her eyes shimmering with tears of her own. We believed in you even when you didn't believe in yourself, Mark. We can figure this out, handle each hurdle as it comes. And we'll be there every step. Just take it one day at a time. The warmth of her words enveloped them like a hug, a testament to family strength. With a deep breath, Mark nodded, the weight slowly lifting from his shoulders. He began to speak, pouring out the tangled emotions, sharing his side of the story. Every word seemed to chip away at the pain, transforming their space into a haven of understanding and healing. Hours passed in this delicate exchange, the weight of burdens carried lighter when shared. As night fell softly outside, Emma held on to her brother's hand. Their family bonded tighter than ever, standing resilient against the shadows that had threatened to consume them in that hospital room. Amidst the blinking machines and the soft hum of life, Mark began to accept himself and lean into the promise of tomorrow. Emerging from the darkness didn't mean forgetting the past, but it signaled the beginning of something new, something filled with hope, even fear. They would not be defined by their struggles, but rather forged into a stronger family, capable of facing whatever storm lay ahead. And as they sat there, united by love and understanding, Emma whispered a silent promise. They would keep rebuilding, brick by brick, until even the most desolate moments dissolved into memories of resilience, laughter, and life. Don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and support real stories of hope. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Comment your reactions and feelings about the ending.